They were chilling images of a woman who murdered her mother, Isabella Guzman, smiling for the cameras after stabbing her mom 79 times. Now she says she is ready to return to society.
Hey, true crime enthusiasts, welcome back to the channel. Today we're delving into a case that sent shockwaves through Colorado and ignited a firestorm on social media. This is the chilling story of Isabella Guzman, an 18-year-old who committed an unthinkable act against her own mother. On August 28, 2013, in the quiet suburb of Aurora, Colorado, a family argument escalated into something far more sinister. But to understand how things reached this breaking point, we need to rewind and look at the events leading up to that fateful night. Isabella Guzman grew up in what appeared to be a normal household with her mother, Yun-Mi Hoy, and stepfather, Ryan Hoy. From the outside, Isabella's life seemed unremarkable. She wasn't a standout student, but she wasn't failing either. She had no major career aspirations, and her school life was, by all accounts, average. However, beneath this seemingly ordinary surface, a storm was brewing. Isabella had a troubled relationship with her parents, particularly her mother, from a very young age. Her behavior was so challenging that when she was just 7 years old, her mother sent her to live with her biological father, Richard. Now you might be wondering, how bad could a 7-year-old's behavior be to warrant such a drastic measure? While we don't have the specifics, it's clear that Yun-Mi felt overwhelmed and unable to handle her daughter's conduct. This arrangement with her father didn't last long, and Isabella eventually returned to live with her mother and stepfather. But the underlying issues remained unresolved, setting the stage for future conflicts. As Isabella entered her teenage years, the situation at home deteriorated rapidly. She became increasingly rebellious and antisocial. She'd skip school, often sneaking boys into the house against her mother's wishes. These weren't just harmless acts of teenage rebellion. They were symptoms of a deeper problem. Isabella's relationship with her mother became particularly strained. She resented Yun-Mi for what she perceived as their family's financial struggles. Isabella's parents owned an art studio together, even after their divorce. But the business wasn't particularly lucrative. While many children grow out of blaming their parents for financial hardships, Isabella's resentment only seemed to deepen with time. The arguments between Isabella and her mother weren't just loud, they were hostile and often bordered on physical violence. Isabella would spit on her mother, a deeply disrespectful act that hints at the level of contempt she felt. But it didn't stop there. Isabella began sending her mother threatening texts and emails, promising that Yun-Mi would pay for how she had treated her. Yun-Mi was terrified of her own daughter. She once even called the police on Isabella after receiving particularly violent threats. Can you imagine being so afraid of your own child that you feel the need to involve law enforcement? It's a parent's worst nightmare, fearing the very person you raised and love. Now, it's important to note that Isabella tells a different story about her childhood. She claims she was abused at home from a young age, particularly after she rejected her family's Jehovah's Witness faith at 14. However, there's no corroborating evidence for these abuse allegations. Some speculate that Isabella fabricated this story to gain sympathy or support an insanity defense later on. While we should always take abuse allegations seriously, in this case, the lack of supporting evidence makes it difficult to verify Isabella's claims. Fast forward to August 28, 2013. That morning, Isabella's stepfather Ryan called the police to report another threatening message Isabella had sent to her mother. This wasn't the first time law enforcement had been involved, but it would tragically be the last. Yun-Mi, desperate for help, reached out to Isabella's biological father, Richard, asking him to talk some sense into their daughter. Richard came over and had a long heart-to-heart with Isabella in the backyard. They sat for over an hour, discussing her relationship with her mother, the changes that needed to happen, and the potential consequences if things didn't improve. Richard left feeling optimistic, thinking he'd finally gotten through to Isabella. He described watching nature with his daughter during their conversation, feeling like he'd seen a glimmer of the good person he knew was inside her. Little did he know, this would be the last peaceful moment before tragedy struck. That evening, as Yun-Mi was preparing to take a shower, Ryan heard a commotion upstairs. He rushed to investigate and saw Isabella slamming the bathroom door shut, trapping herself inside with her mother. What happened next was nothing short of a nightmare. Ryan tried desperately to force the door open as he heard the sounds of a violent struggle inside. He shouted at Isabella to stop, pleading with her to leave her mother alone. But his words fell on deaf ears. Unable to get in, he ran to call 911. When he returned, he saw blood seeping under the door and heard Yunmi's final word, Jehovah. Moments later, the bathroom door opened. Isabella emerged, covered in blood and still clutching a knife. Without a word or even a glance at her stepfather, she calmly walked past him and out of the house. Ryan described this moment as particularly eerie. Isabella's face showed no emotion, no sign of the horrific act she had just committed. It was as if she had simply finished taking a shower. The scene inside the bathroom was horrific. Yunmi lay motionless, her body brutally mutilated. Ryan attempted CPR, but it was clear that Yunmi was already gone. The autopsy would later reveal the shocking extent of the attack. Yunmi had been stabbed a total of 79 times, 31 times in the face and 48 times in the neck. There were also wounds from a baseball bat. This wasn't just a murder, it was an act of extreme rage and emotion. The sheer number of stab wounds indicates that even after Isabella's arm must have tired, she kept going, driven by fury and adrenaline. The focus on Yunmi's face suggests a deeply personal motive, as if Isabella wanted to destroy her mother's very identity. A manhunt was launched to find Isabella. The next morning, police received a call about a possible body in a parking garage. It turned out to be Isabella, still covered in blood, asleep in her car. She was arrested without incident and taken to a hospital to treat some cuts on her hands, likely self-inflicted during the attack. After her arrest, Isabella underwent psychiatric evaluation and was diagnosed with schizophrenia. She claimed she believed her mother was actually an evil being named Cecilia, who had to be killed to save the world. Isabella said voices told her she needed to do this. Of course, this was all part of her psychotic break from reality. Isabella's court appearances are what made this case go viral. Her behavior was chilling, smiling sarcastically at cameras, making strange gestures. These clips spread across social media, particularly on TikTok, where some people disturbingly turned them into memes or edits set to music. This online reaction raises serious ethical questions. How do we balance public interest in true crime cases with respect for the victims and their families? Is it ever appropriate to turn real-life tragedies into entertainment? These are complex issues that we as a true crime community need to grapple with. Given her mental state, Isabella's defense team entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. This plea was accepted, meaning Isabella avoided the death penalty but was sentenced to an indefinite stay in a psychiatric facility. She remains at the Colorado Mental Health Institute today at age 25. Isabella has attempted to appeal her confinement, claiming she's rehabilitated and ready to rejoin society. She argues that she's been on medication for years now and is no longer the same person she was at 18. However, given the severity of her crime and her ongoing need for medication to manage her mental illness, it seems unlikely she'll be released anytime soon. This case raises many difficult questions. How could a teenage girl commit such a horrific act against her own mother? Could this tragedy have been prevented if Isabella's mental health issues had been identified and treated earlier? And how do we as a society balance justice for victims with treatment for severely mentally ill offenders? It also highlights the importance of taking threats seriously, even when they come from family members. Yunmi knew her daughter was dangerous, but likely never imagined just how far Isabella would go. This serves as a stark reminder that we should never dismiss or downplay threats of violence, no matter the source. The case of Isabella Guzman is a tragic example of how untreated mental illness can lead to devastating consequences. While it doesn't excuse her actions, understanding the role of her mental health helps us comprehend how such a horrific event could occur. As we conclude this video, let's take a moment to remember Yunmi Hoi, a hardworking mother whose life was cut tragically short. May she rest in peace. And let's also consider the broader implications of this case, the need for better mental health support, and the importance of taking threats seriously. Thanks for watching, True Crime Community. If you have any thoughts on this case or suggestions for future videos, drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth true crime content. Until next time, stay safe and stay compassionate.